Covering the Universal Orlando Resort for over 4 years, you are listening to the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast.
Hello everyone and welcome to episode 206 of the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. I'm your host Lee, and apart from my guest, I'm currently here on my own. This is the second time we've sat down to record this week. If anybody listened to last week's show, you'll have heard there was slight audio issues, and we recorded with our current guest at the same time, and the audio came out just as bad, and I didn't think it was fair to put that out, so I am sitting down with the one, the only Dreamfinder himself, Mr. Ron Schneider. Ron, thanks for taking the time to come and join us again.
My pleasure, Lee. Happy to do it.
It's not very often we have those sort of issues on the show in 5 years, but it always seems to be at the worst possible times. So, yes, cool. Right. So, Ron, we have had you on previously before, twice. Having chatted the other night while we were recording, it turns out it's been 4 very long years since you've been on. Wow. So, for those people who don't know, I haven't listened to those shows because one of them's out and one of them's still sat in the vault waiting to come out. Can you give us a brief history of your sort of tenure in theme parks and obviously especially Universal, please?
Well, I grew up in Southern California. I was at Disneyland the day it opened in 1955. Grew up going to Disneyland, Universal Studios, Knott's Berry Farm, and from an early age was fascinated with performing, magic, puppetry, and when I was old enough to realize such a thing was possible, I decided I wanted a career performing in theme parks because I loved working one-on-one with the guests and involving them in whatever show I'm doing. My first theme park job was in 1970. I was in the wardrobe issue for the Christmas parade at Disneyland. I opened Six Flags Magic Mountain in 1971 as a ride operator. I was the Universal Studios tour guide in 1976. Worked at a lot of different themed dinner shows, about 6 or 7 over the years. Wow. Was understudied Wally Bogue at the Golden Horseshoe Review starting in 1980. I was creative manager at Universal Studios Florida for Womp Hopper's Wagon Works, a $3 million themed restaurant in which I played C.L. Womp Hopper, the title character. Disney brought me out to Orlando in 1982 to open Epcot Center. I was the original Dreamfinder.
Which is probably the role that most people know you for.
I believe so, yeah. I did that for 5 years, from 82 to 87. Went off, did some more themed dinner shows in Canada and Kissimmee, Florida. When Universal Studios Florida opened in 1990, I was a creative supervisor for the celebrity Lookalikes, and that turned into a full-time writing job for the company, so I was there for about 3 years altogether. And after that, I did a lot of freelance work for Chuck E. Cheese and Robert Earl Productions and voiceover work. And the last theme park job I had was 2006 to 2010. I was in the opening crew of the Monsters Incorporated Laugh Floor.
Awesome.
At the Magic Kingdom.
Yes, we have sampled that before. Unfortunately, I've not been that guy yet, but hopefully that'll happen at some point. Now, I know, like when we had you on previously, Ron, obviously we talked about your part in the very first Halloween Horror Nights. Mm-hmm. And the first Christmas show, which was, remind me what it was called again, Ron?
The Super Santatastic Extravaganza, the world's leading example of bad nomenclature.
Yes, and I know that's a story that you told us when you came on to talk about that I know Tracy still is in hysterics over Santa getting stuck on top of it. I believe it was the Back to the Future building. Is that?
Yes, sir.
My memory does serve me correctly. Awesome. Well, what we actually invited you on to talk about, obviously now for the second time, was something you actually mentioned there when your role as creative supervisor for Universal Studios Florida's the celebrity Lookalikes, which is something that it doesn't have as big a presence in the parks now, but I think it's definitely still there, and obviously you will have been the catalyst for that. So how did that particular role sort of come about, and what did it involve?
Well, it started for me back in high school, and I became a big fan of classic comedy. Laurel and Hardy and the Marx Brothers and W.C. Fields were kind of a field of study for me. I loved what they did and became quite a fan of the films, along with a lot of my friends. And over the years working in theme parks, of course, it was quite an inspiration because they were doing the kind of comedy that I like to do. I worked a couple of gigs in Central Florida, which brought me into contact with two very talented people. One was Danny Burzlaff, who was the original SeaWorld mime back in the day, and he was working at a themed dinner show in Orlando for a brief period of time called King's Manor. The director of that show was a young lady named Sharon Miller. And the two of them got to know me. I understudied the king in that show. And while I was there for a short period of time, they got to know me as someone who knew from comedy and knew from the classic comedy. And I always had a trouble keeping my mouth shut about such things. So when the time came, they were both hired to oversee the animated characters for Universal Studios' new park here in Orlando. They were going to oversee the Hanna-Barbera characters, Woody Woodpecker, and all those characters. And at that time, they were planning to also have in the park celebrity lookalikes, people who would dress up as W.C. Fields, Marilyn Monroe, Mae West, W.C. Fields, Marx Brothers, and the Blues Brothers. And they were looking for somebody to manage those and direct those for the park. And Danny and Sharon were kind enough to think of me. So they got in touch with me. I was kind of between gigs at the time. They asked me to put together just a proposal of what Universal might do with their characters. There was no mention of a job, but they gave me a kind of a contract gig to go away and come away with a short proposal of what would the characters do in the park. They already had celebrity lookalikes in Hollywood, but they weren't doing much with them.
No.
They just strolled around posing for pictures and signing autographs. But out here, the head of entertainment was a very talented fellow named Neil Miller, was the head of entertainment at the time, and he loved these characters as much as anyone and wanted to see if they could do something. So I did a proposal to them. They, I sat down not knowing what they had in mind, but I decided they were kind of leaving that up to me if they were asking my opinion.
Right.
So I thought there are two ways you can go with something like this. You can try to either recreate what the characters did in the past, or you can make them live now. You can have them coming out doing new material in the old style that would react to and interact with the guests. So the characters, the people coming to the park, would have a personal experience of the Marx Brothers.
Yeah.
Which is, I thought, much more preferable.
That's going to give you much better memories as a guest as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So that's the proposal I turned in. And went into Danny's office and handed him the thing. He said, "Thank you very much." And I said, "By the way, Danny, I'm going to start work shortly for Disney MGM. I was going to be working with Streetmosphere." And he said, "Oh, really?" Oh. He got up and he left the office. And I sat there for a few minutes, and he comes back and he says, "Listen, Ron, we want you to come here and work full-time and supervise the celebrity lookalikes. But the budget hasn't been approved, so I can't offer you the job.
Right.
Just to let you know that that's our intention." So I decided, well, listen, if there's a chance of that, I've been performing for so many, many years that here's a chance to move into writing and creating and directing and training other people, and that's what I really wanted to do. So it turns out I got the job and came into the operation. They already had a few celebrity lookalikes working there, very talented people. We had a wonderful Groucho. Fred Franco was just the ultimate Groucho impersonator. And we had a wonderful Elwood Blues. We didn't have a Jake Blues yet, but Keith Colby was our Elwood Blues, and he was perfect. We had a terrific Stan Laurel and a great Mae West and just a couple of other people.
Can I just put in a second, Ron?
Yes.
Because obviously you had these characters, but what sort of thought went into which specific characters you would have in the park?
They were looking, as far as I could tell, and this I never had the conversation, but my guess is they were looking for classic Hollywood characters that people would recognize when they saw them. When you're putting together Streetmosphere, there are two ways to go. You can do lookalikes, which immediately when you see them, you have a relationship with them. You know who they are.
Yeah.
Like this is what they were doing out in California, and that's kind of the advantage of doing that out here. Disneyland, or rather the Disney Studios out here, Disney MGM, was going for more generic Hollywood types. And the funny thing is that before I got hired at Universal, I was writing for those generic Hollywood types. I got a contract from them to create backstories and comic material for the various characters they were going to have on Hollywood Boulevard. that have since evolved quite a bit. But I did a whole comic Bible for the character for Sid Cahuenga and all the other characters they were going to have on Hollywood Boulevard, which is one way to go. The advantage to that, really the only advantage to that, is you don't have to pay royalties.
Yes.
Because when you're trying to recreate the Marx Brothers, you have to pay the Marx Brothers family for the rights to the characters. And this goes for all of the characters. So at Universal, they decided long before I got there that we're going to go with the lookalikes because that gives you a certain cachet, gives you an immediate response with the guest's immediate identification. And they had bought the rights to have W.C. Fields, the Marx Brothers, Blues Brothers, and those characters strolling around. And so that's why they went with that, and that's how that was set up.
Okay.
So I came in, they had already had some lookalikes. They'd done some promotions for the park, had made personal appearances, but the park we were a few months away from opening, and we had to fill in the ranks. So we went out on a audition tour. They went around to several major states and major cities, and we set up auditions in different hotels. And people from the local area would come dressed in costume, and they would audition for us. And there would be kind of a competition, and one person would be selected at the end of the day who would win a free trip to Orlando,
Awesome.
Where they would then compete for a job at the park.
So the original X Factor.
Yeah, exactly.
Were you Simon Cowell?
No, I was a little more encouraging than that. Actually, all of us were. The whole team, Danny and Sharon, we were all pretty positive about it because we'd been in that situation too many times ourselves.
I'm sure.
But we went to Indianapolis and Minneapolis, Miami Beach, and St. Louis were the four that I went along on. And that was quite an experience. I'd never done much traveling before that. But we met some wonderful people. We had some very talented folks, some great lookalikes. One fellow was a ranch owner who looked exactly like John Wayne, was amazing. Peter Lorre, a taxi cab driver who looked just like Peter Lorre, which has got to be a crazy situation to get into a cab. And there was a fellow also who was he worked on installing roofs, working on tops of buildings, and he was the spitting image of John Belushi.
Right.
And we brought finally at the end of the tour we brought all these people out to Florida. We set up much closer to opening, a few weeks out from opening, and we had a gathering at the Animal Actors stage. And we did a big presentation for the press, and these people got up and performed. I wrote the monologues. And the winner was our John Belushi lookalike, wonderful young fella, I thought. And he joined our lookalike team. In the meantime, I was hiring other people. I found a fella came in who was a former choir director from Hawaii. A wonderful, charming fellow who looked exactly like Oliver Hardy.
Right.
And all I had to do was stick a mustache on him and give him the job. I mean, there was virtually nothing to judge with the guy. He was just so perfect. We had W.C. Fields, who was a little more interested in promoting himself than the character. We just brought in more people. I found a terrific pair of Harpo and Chico to go with our Groucho.
Right.
In a stand-up comedy workshop I was attending.
Okay.
And there's one fellow who really wanted to be Groucho, but I wound up making him Chico because we already had a great Groucho. And another fellow, Banks Helfrich, who was, as a stand-up comic, wasn't as sharp when he talked.
Right.
And I thought, but he had this angelic look, and I thought, gosh, he's a perfect Harpo. So I was able to fill out the ranks in that way. So we started pulling this thing together, doing press events and publicity shoots. Our first event was a concert we did with the Orlando Symphony Orchestra. And there was going to be a whole evening that they played of Universal Studios film music. And we had each of the characters would introduce a different selection. This was when we first started to get the feeling that our John Belushi character wasn't going to work out for us. Because as we started to do more and more of these bits, he would just not show up, or would show up late and obviously very exhausted from some kind of activity. And the night that we did the show for the with the orchestra. He didn't show up at all.
Oops.
And what we finally came to realize was that this fellow was just like John Belushi. And finally we wound up putting him in rehab and kind of walking away.
So he was a method actor.
Exactly. He was very devoted. There's one interesting experience that I got a call one day that he just didn't show up for work. And he was still in the hotel room where he was staying, and so I had to go pick him up. And as I'm picking him up, he gets in the car, and he's making all kinds of excuses and just talking a mile a minute.
Right.
And I started laughing hysterically. He said, "Why are you laughing?" I says, because I'm in the car with John Belushi, and it's like being in the car with Jake Blues, because he's making all these ridiculous excuses. And it just was so funny. It was just like a scene out of the movie. So we said goodbye to him. We found a wonderful fellow, Dan Meisner, who was a comic actor and just stepped into the shoes of Jake Blues like nobody's business. He went on to make a career out of it. He's still doing it. He was with the Legends in Concert in Vegas, and now I think he's somewhere up on the East Coast doing the shows with another Elwood. And so that worked out very, very nicely. And I got to say also about this concert we did with the Orlando Symphony. When we were planning this thing out, they gave me a list of the music we were going to do, and they had the Peter Gunn theme for the Blues Brothers, and they were going to have the theme from Jaws. So I had Laurel and Hardy come in fishermen's outfits to introduce them, and they were going to play the music from Psycho, the weet. And I'm sitting in a meeting discussing this with Neil Miller and Danny and everything like that, and I made the mistake of doing my Alfred Hitchcock impression.
Right.
Because Alfred Hitchcock used to do the commercials for Universal Studios in California. He'd say, "Welcome to the Universal Studios tour. There's sets, costumes. You do meet the strangest people on the tour." And Neil said, "Okay, you're going to do Alfred Hitchcock." I said, no, I'm not going to do Alfred. Yes, you're going to do Alfred Hitchcock. So before the concert, I had to sit in makeup chair for 4 hours while they put a bald cap on me and made me up to introduce the theme from Psycho.
Awesome. How important when you were casting the lookalikes then, Ron, was how the voice was?
The voice was actually the least important element I found in doing lookalikes, because the most important thing you'd think would be physical resemblance. But the most important thing I find about lookalikes is the ability to make the guest feel the energy coming off of meeting this person. If you've got a Mae West who makes every man feel like he's a sexy beast, that's a great Mae West. That's a great Marilyn Monroe.
Yeah.
We had two Marilyns. We had Lisa Barr and Cynthia Hefner. Lisa Barr was the spitting image of Marilyn Monroe, and terrific, great physical resemblance. Cynthia Hefner did not look at all like Marilyn Monroe, but she could act the hell out of it and could make you feel that wonderful sense of joy and physical challenge that you would have facing Marilyn Monroe. The same thing with our Mae Wests. Our Mae Wests, one of them looked more like Mae West than the other, but both of them were very, very good in the role. So the vocals, came afterwards, and it was not so much a matter of capturing the tone, but of capturing the cadence,
right,
and a thought pattern, the speed with which they spoke, the way that they reacted, and certain vocal clues could put that across far better than a vocal imitation.
Mm.
Yeah.
Interesting. Because I suppose when, I think back to the parks, now some of them look better than others. But yeah, I think it's more about, like you said, more how they act. If they act like the person, you kind of let that go a little bit. That they're not quite how they are, but enough to sort of sell you the role, as it were.
Exactly. It's funny because as we're talking now, as you know, I've been working on a film called The Further Adventures of Walt's Frozen Head. And for the first time in my life, I'm doing a lookalike role. And I'm playing the part of Walt Disney's Frozen Head. So they make me up to look like Walt. And I'm in this film that's going to be coming out about the end of the year. And the physical resemblance carries it. I don't really need to do Walt Disney's voice so much. I just, just sound a little bit more gruff, so like I've been smoking 3 packs a day. But I find that this carries the thing off is the energy and the attitude more than anything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's cool. I wish they'd do a bit more of that stuff in the parks now. It seems to be, I don't know whether it's a cost-cutting measure nowadays, but you don't see as much of that in the parks now. I mean, I know the Marilyn Monroe character's just got kind of like a little trio of girls with her, but as a rule, you don't see as much. I think it's a sort of product of the parks being as busy as they are now, isn't it, more than anything else?
Well, there's a couple of elements there. First of all, when it's just like with any other major organization, when management changes, the philosophy changes. When Universal Studios opened, we were a very tight-knit group of people who shared certain passions. Neil Miller, Danny Burzlaff, and myself all were big fans of these characters, and so we put a lot of time and effort into those characters. And because part of the reason, because when Universal opened, originally there was not going to be an entertainment division.
Right.
It was going to be all handled by operations. As a result, the Ghostbusters, since they were part of an attraction, were actually handled, cast, and directed by the operations people. The lookalikes were kind of put off to the side and not given much thought the way you would with animated characters, which is the category that we fell under. When Universal has a certain way, or did anyway back then, of treating their people, and eventually good creative people would fall away. So we lost Danny Burzlaff, we lost Neil Miller, we lost a lot of the original crew, the people that had the passions for that, and the people who came in were of a different background. They came from Reno and the Vegas end of things, and they did not have that same passion for the characters. So it didn't take much time for them to start to discount those characters. And after a few more years, eventually there was just nobody upstairs that had that passion for it, and so they made an announcement that nobody knows who these characters are anymore, so we're getting rid of them. And it may have been a cost-cutting thing because they were paying an annual fee for the use of the characters. But I think it was more a thing of a change in philosophy for the.
Yeah. I know I mentioned when we recorded on Monday night that we did an interview with a friend of ours, Tiffany, who worked in costume, and she was telling us that while she was there, the original Ricky Ricardo left while she was there, and she told us, now I'm going to test you this and see if it was actually true, that he was the only person that ever played Ricky at the park. Is that right? I think it was called Adrian something.
Adrian Flowers.
Right. Is that
Adrian Flowers?
Is that true then? He was the only guy?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, what happened was when we got the rights to Lucy, we had been open for a while, and Lucy Arnaz and the family came down. They installed a beautiful Lucy display on Hollywood Boulevard, and we got the rights to have Lucy Ricardo. And I was in charge of the lookalikes back then, and my idea was I wanted to have Lucy and Ethel in the parks as a team,
right?
Like a Laurel and Hardy. Like my other big dream was to have Ralph Cramden and Ed Norton from the Honeymooners. We never got the rights for them, but I thought you can do more with Lucy and Ethel in a comedy situation than you can with Lucy and Ricky. But I went out and got my hair cut, and I was at a barbershop right around the corner from Universal Studios. And this guy comes in. I'd never had my hair cut before. This guy comes up, and my God, he was Desi Arnaz to the life. I mean, it was amazing. And he was Cuban, and it was just too perfect. And I said to the man, "Have you ever done this before?" He goes, "Nope, nobody's ever said I look like him." Blah blah blah. He wound up doing it for 25 years. He just retired, and a sweeter human being you'd never meet in your life. He stepped right into the role, learned how to act like a band leader. He spoke the Spanish so he could curse out Lucy under his breath. He had the laugh down the and just a sweet fellow, and stepped in and was there for 25 years.
Wow.
And original Lucy was a young lady who was a secretary with the entertainment office who came in, Melissa Radley, sweet lady. And so they were my original Lucy and Ricky. And we had a lot of fun out there.
Yeah, I remember going, I think it was our first or second time over to Florida, and when they used to put the characters just past the turnstile, so once you came into the parks, they'd have the characters there to interact with you as soon as you got into the park. And the one that really stood out, I remember for Tracy specifically, was Ricky and Lucy. Mm-hmm. She's a huge Lucy fan, and it's kind of a shame that exhibit isn't there. I mean, she's still in the park. I don't think there's a Ricky there anymore, but obviously they got rid of the I Love Lucy exhibit. But it's one of those things that I feel a little bit, I hang my head in shame because we never went in there. So I suppose it's just a product of it not really being in pop culture, and things move on, I suppose.
Yeah, they've got Hello Kitty in there.
Yeah, for what that's worth. I won't go in there either.
Interesting story. To just for a second jump parks, I visited Disneyland with my daughter when she was 6 years old, and we happened to be there many years ago. And they were having various promotions of the park. They did a summer where they promoted all sorts of stuff from the 1950s, and they had a 3:00 parade. They had celebrity lookalikes in the 3:00 parade. So she and I are sitting on the curb. And here comes a selection of celebrity lookalikes, and they've got a Superman there, and they've got Lone Ranger and Tonto, and here comes Lucy and Ricky. And my 6-year-old daughter was a tremendous I Love Lucy fan. I had no idea.
Right.
She jumps up off the curb and goes and grabs Lucy and hugs Lucy in the middle of the parade. And Lucy looked down at her, looked over at Ricky and said, "Ricky, is this one of your girlfriends?"
Awesome.
Those characters touch people. That's, like I said, that's the advantage of having lookalikes rather than generic characters.
Yes. Because
people come with this love and this knowledge and this affection for them that you just can't fake.
Definitely. And I think people like Lucy and especially the Blues Brothers. I mean, you look at the Blues Brothers are still in the park now and still very, very popular. And even Laurel and Hardy, our kids love Laurel and Hardy if it's on the TV, and I think it's the comedy transcends the age of the characters. I mean, I know when we recorded on Monday night, you were telling us some stories about some of the stuff that they would get up to in the parks. I think the one about whitewashing, was it a boat? I think if I remember rightly.
Yeah. When I brought the people on board, when I first hired them, my words to them were, "Listen, guys," I had everybody at our first big meeting, and I said, "Listen, you are inheriting a tremendous responsibility. These are beloved characters, and you are going to be personifying them, and you're going to be carrying them forth and making them live today. And if we don't do that right, we're doing them a disservice. But if we can do that right, then you're going to be stars." I said, my objective is to work with you to bring you as close to these people as possible, and we'll watch videos and we'll talk and we'll work on stuff. But my goal is for you to make me a fan so that all I have to do is walk out in the park and the characters are alive and I don't have to worry about it. I can just enjoy it along with everyone else. And the majority of people that I had hired that we had at Universal were of that quality. They took this very seriously and very personally, and they took these characters, they just ran with them. So that one day I walk out into the Amity area of the park, and there's Laurel and Hardy in these coveralls with a bucket of whitewash, and they found a rowboat that had just been sitting set dressing by the lagoon, and they're painting this rowboat with whitewash and getting themselves covered with the whitewash as well. And then when it's time for these actors to go on a break, they don't take the break. They sat there and ate their lunch in the rowboat. So the guests are walking by and they're seeing this as part of the show, as part of the atmosphere. The characters aren't just there posing for pictures and signing autographs, but they're alive and they're doing the kind of things that we saw them do in the films. Oliver Hardy, Jamie, was a brilliant prop maker. He built a piano crate. They won their Academy Award for a film called The Music Box,
yes,
in which they pushed this crate with a piano in it up this enormous flight of stairs. Well, Jamie created a crate the size of a small piano that looked exactly like the one in the film. It was mounted on casters, but the casters were inset on the bottom so you couldn't see them. And you could push this thing down the road and it would bounce along on the cobblestones and on the bricks. And the thing was inside of it, he had rigged up this ingenious collection of bungee cords with pipes and metal strips. So when the thing fell over, it sounded like there was a piano destroyed inside. On top of which, the whole thing was so light that it could fall on top of him and he wouldn't be damaged.
Brilliant.
And so when they would go for our offices, our break area was across the park from where the employee cafeteria was. So when they would go for lunch, they would take the piano crate with them. And they'd go bouncing along, and they'd stop halfway through and do this whole scene where trying to get it up the stairs and onto the curb, and it'd fall on top of them, and everybody would see this. And then they'd go to lunch, and they'd bring it back, and that would be their show going back the other way. I walked into the park one morning, and there's this crowd collected around the cafe near the entrance. And I break through the crowd, and there's the Marx Brothers sitting at the table with a couple of beautiful young ladies playing pinochle. And they're doing all the comic bits that the Marx Brothers do. It seemed to the guests to be completely extemporaneous, but it was very well rehearsed and beautifully put together.
Yes.
Another time, you'll get a kick out of this. I didn't tell you this before. Right. I was walking down, they have Hollywood Boulevard at Universal. They've got the stars, the Walk of the Stars. They got the stars' names on the sidewalk, just like they do in Hollywood. And I was walking late one day, and I'm down the street, and I'm checking out the stars. And there's an empty square, an empty thing on the block there. And in chalk, there's drawn an enormous star. And in the star, they had written Jake and Elwood.
Awesome.
So the next morning, I show up for work, and the guys come in. And I go, gentlemen, I need to see you in my office. They come, close the door. I say, I saw the thing. I said, that is absolutely brilliant. And I shook their hands. And I said, now you got to go wash it off. They said, why? I says, because it's not funny if it's there. It's funny if they see you write it.
Yes.
And so as they went, and every day they would go in and write the names on the sidewalk.
Ladies and gentlemen, the 8th wonder of the world is returning to Universal Orlando Resort. So let our friends at Fairy Godmother Travel take care of the resort reservation. They are a Universal Parks and Resorts specialist, as well as being an authorised Disney vacation planner, and their service is free to you. From the awesome Cabana Bay Hotel to those other hotels run by a mouse, Fairy Godmother Travel can book all your Orlando vacation needs. So, you don't need to miss the chance to see the amazing King Kong in the flesh. And please make sure to let them know that you heard about Fairy Godmother Travel because of UUOP. Because every UUOP referral helps us to continue to bring you the greatest Universal coverage. Contact them today by phone at 832-284-4002 or toll free at 888-939-642539 or go to fairygodmothertravel.com.
Let Fairy Godmother Travel make your next vacation magical.
We now return you to your regularly scheduled programming.
This is the way that, I wanted the thing to be as much fun for the people because this is a grind, doing this 8 hours a day for 5 days a week. But the people were such pros, and they took it so seriously.
And that's the thing, with it being ad-libbed as well and kind of left open to a little bit of interpretation and not necessarily being... I think Universal tends to do that a lot with their attractions and stuff, that they won't necessarily... Like, if you look at the Disney attractions, like a lot of the rides, the dark rides are like potted... like a walk through the story, for example, like say for the Little Mermaid, the new one, it basically is a shortened version of the Little Mermaid story.
They call it a book report ride.
Okay, yeah, well that makes sense. But then you look at what Universal do is say, let's take Gringotts for example. They've taken something that everybody knows in a storyline that everybody knows, but then shifted it slightly and brought something new to the universe. And I think that's what Universal do. Then rather than getting the characters. Right, we want you to go and do this skit that everybody will have seen in your films or whatever. I want you to take what those characters are, but add something extra to it.
Yeah, you give them a life beyond their life that we know.
Yeah.
Tell a different story. Yeah, every park does this, depending on who's creative manager at the time. You take a look at the Indiana Jones ride at Disneyland. That's exactly what they did. They
Yeah.
take everything you know about Indiana Jones, but they tell a different story with it. Disney does have a tendency to regurgitate the same things that you've seen in the films on stage. And sometimes it can work, and sometimes it just does not work. Their Beauty and the Beast stage show, I think, is beautifully done and beautifully acted and beautifully portrayed, and the production values are great. But it is the same story.
Yeah.
And these characters have a life. I mean, we learned this when we saw Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Yes.
These characters have a life, and in allowing them to live that life, the philosophy of a lot of people is, well, we have to tell the audience the same story they already know because they expect it. But the fact is, they don't expect the story, they expect the behavior. And if you give them the behavior and tell them a new story, it holds their interest a lot more, and you don't wind up with an audience trying to remember the film.
Mm.
Like if you go to see the brilliantly produced Finding Nemo show at Animal Kingdom, it's a beautiful
Yes.
show, and the puppetry is great. The original stuff's terrific. But when it comes time for that obnoxious little girl to come tapping on the cage, on the glass, it's a slide, a very faint slide, and you're looking at this giant thing and you're going, oh yeah, I remember that from the film.
Yeah.
Well, that takes us out of the moment of the show. And so I always try to make the characters live now. I try to make it, and the fact is, the stuff that we're doing on the streets is not ad-libbed. It's the same stuff that we did last week. And it's the same stuff we did an hour ago. But it has to appear ad-libbed. Once you learn what your audience is thinking and how they're thinking it, you can second guess them. And you can make it appear like it's all fresh all the time. When I was doing the Dreamfinder, I had, everybody has 4 or 5 different ways they can react to a wizard carrying a dragon. Once you know what those 4 or 5 ways are, then you come up with 2 or 3 ways of reacting to each of those 4 or 5 ways, and you've got an hour's worth of material.
Yes.
So you go out there, and virtually nothing I did, in the last few years was ad-lib, because I'd seen it all and been there all. But everyone I met thought that what they were doing with me was unique, because I was reacting in a spontaneous way to what they gave me.
Right.
They just didn't realize that they were just like everyone else.
Yes. As I know we mentioned on Monday when we were recording, that I think the only characters you really see in the parks now that come across like that are probably the Men in Black characters, and probably Doc Brown, actually. There's a guy who plays Doc Brown, one specific one at the parks, and he is fantastic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. When you meet Doc Brown, or when you meet the Men in Black, as long as they're behaving the way that you expect them to, and behaving spontaneously to what you give them, then it's all fresh and new, and it looks spontaneous.
Yes.
Yeah, that's the craft. That's the craft of it.
But having that experience with an actual character is going to give you a much better memory than a generic one that you don't know, like you said, with the ones at MGM Studios. I was going to call it Hollywood Studios there. Yeah, it's just, I wish there was more of it now. Yeah,
well, it's the IPs, the intellectual properties like Minions, Star Wars. There's good ways of handling it. There's bad ways of handling it. I think Disney does a pretty good job with it. Universal's got to do a pretty good job of it too, but there's only so far you can go with a fiberglass head.
Yeah.
And the characters that can speak and interact with you and do it spontaneously, not just in a queue line environment. I think they take a lot of the magic out of the park when they set up queue lines. Well, actually, the thing that I blame is autograph books.
Yes.
Because the autograph book, suddenly it becomes a checklist thing. We have to have this autograph and the picture with the monkey, and then move on to the next thing. And everybody thinks that that's what it's about. But that's not what it's about. When I was telling you about when I took my daughter when she was 6 to Disneyland, we ran into Captain Hook and Mr. Smee in front of the castle, and there were no other kids around. They spent 5 minutes teaching her how to bow and how to minuet, and she was just loved that. As a matter of fact, we were walking away from that. She knew that I had some kind of connection with the Dreamfinder, but she didn't know what it was. So we're walking away from the characters that particular day, and she says to me, "Daddy, where do Mickey and Minnie go when Disneyland closes?" I said, "Well, they go home." She said, "No, they don't. The people go home. The costumes stay here."
Ooh.
And I thought, wow, she's 6 years old and she already knows company policy. So now we're walking along the street another minute, and she looks at me and she goes, "Oh, you play the part." That's what she figured out what I did for a living.
I mean, you talk about that autograph book thing. I think that's a Disney thing. I think it's not. I think you see it at Universal, but I think it's more that people have been so. Like it's such a learned thing from going to Walt Disney World that it's been transferred over to Universal rather than it being a Universal thing.
Well, the characters were always very central to Disney, to the Disney parks. Walt Disney said, when they were, they didn't have the characters when the parks opened. In '55, there were no strolling characters. There were just generic characters. They had a Robin Hood character. They had a street sweeper character. They had a sheriff character in Frontierland, just generic characters. It wasn't until 1959, about that the company started putting character costumes in the park. And one of the executives was talking to Walt Disney and said, we'll have the characters there and they'll be fine. Walt said, no, you don't understand. We have that's something unique that we need to exploit and expand upon, because nobody else can do that. And so they had a much more valuable collection of stars right there. And they put much more care into it. And when somebody in merchandising or the Disney Ideas program said, wait a minute, autograph books, and Disney was the first to exploit that, and to see the value of it, and started selling autograph books. And when you are the friend of a Disney character, you learn how to sign that name in the character's particular style. It's a very standardized thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. Going back to Monday night again when we recorded, you remember you telling us a story about, I'm trying to remember now, there was a formal event with the characters that they weren't as welcome as they maybe should have been.
This is the Silver Stars restaurant.
That was right, yes.
Silver Stars restaurant, when Universal Studios first opened, was the high-class posh restaurant in the Hollywood section. And they had beautiful booths, very nice food, very posh, all the waiters, very mannered, white shirts, black bow ties. And before we opened the park, they wanted to have some people come in for meals and give the waitstaff a chance to learn the ropes. So they were passing out passes for a free meal to the executive offices, and I managed to get 5 of them. I got one for myself and one for one of my assistants. And I got 3 for the Marx Brothers. And I told my guys, I want you to show up in costume and in character. And so I showed up a little early, sat in the back booth with my friend, and we're waiting. And sure enough, here come the Marx Brothers at the front door. And they're all manners, and they get seated. Somebody takes their order and goes away. And then my guys sprang up. And Harpo goes and sits at another table and starts eating the condiments off the table while the people are standing there just laughing. Chico finds a couple of cute girls on another table, starts sitting, flirting with them. And Groucho grabs another girl, picks her up, and starts tangoing with her back and forth between the tables. And everyone in the room is enjoying this, except for the assistant manager, who is standing there just shocked. And you see him disappear backstage, and he goes back out with the manager. The 2 of them are standing there, and they're just shocked. And then the manager turns to the assistant manager, and he runs off. And I turn to the woman I'm with, and I'm saying, I think I'm about to get a call on the radio. And sure enough, I get Entertainment 4, we need you to get the Marx Brothers out of Silver Stars restaurant. So put the radio down. I said, oh, boys. And the Marx Brothers raced across the room to my table, which is a magic feeling. And they line up. Yeah, boss. I say, gentlemen, we've been invited to leave. However, I think it would be very rude of you to go until you've shaken hands with everyone in the building. And they all spontaneously salute, and they scatter. And they went around to every table, shook hands with everybody at the table. They shook hands with the manager and the assistant manager. They went back in the kitchen and hugged the kitchen staff, and then they left. And I told my people the next day, I said, gentlemen, we're not going to go back into the Silver Stars anymore. Well, as time went on, my people barged into all of the different eateries on property, and they were always welcome because it was a great show.
Yes.
If the Blues Brothers went into Mel's Drive-In, they got free fries. If they went into Lombard's Landing, which is a rather posh place. They would go in uninvited, sit down at somebody's table. They'd start tossing shrimp at each other, just like in the movie. And then people ate it up, and management loved it. We never went back into Silver Star's restaurant.
Yeah, that would be fantastic. As someone who loves visiting the parks, just to have an impromptu meet and greet, and not even necessarily a meet and greet, just for them to come in and start acting up, I think would be awesome.
Then you've seen something, people used to take the Universal Studios tour in California back when I was there in '76, hoping they were going to see a star.
Yes.
Hoping they'd see somebody shooting something. And you very rarely did, because the tram tour would be rerouted to avoid shoots. But if you did catch a glimpse of somebody, that was a major thing. And so here you give it is a chance to give them a little simulated magic, and the guests really don't care about the difference. If they can see a star, somebody they know behaving in a way that they recognize, and they feel that it's something that they've caught personally, that's a very important thing and a very valuable thing.
It is. I mean, some of our best memories are going back to Halloween Horror Nights last year. We took our 2 kids for the first time, and we were bad parents. Maybe they recommend it. Well, they recommend it for over 13s. Our daughter was 11. And she lapped it up. But one of the best moments we had last year was with one of the icons in Icon Alley, the usher, and he was phenomenal. And he sort of called her over and had a bit of interaction with him. And each character down it was down Hollywood Boulevard, and each character, there was the let me have a look, the caretaker, the director, the storyteller, and the usher, and each one did like a little kill sketch on their stage, and he dedicated his one to her. And when he took the guy into like the little cinema booth and bashed his brains in with his flashlight, and the blood splattered up on the window, and he wrote her name in the window, and it's just little things. It was honestly, it was fantastic, and that just one of the best memories I've ever had interacting with anybody in the parks.
That's wonderful.
Absolutely phenomenal, and we went back like a couple of days later, and he remembered her as well, and it's just, that to me is a great character actor. You think how many people that person's going to see on a nightly basis, and then to remember her a couple of days later was just...
the people who do this kind of work, they don't get paid that much.
No. So
they do it because they love it.
Yep.
And because they see the benefit of it, they see the glory in it, and they're basically wonderful people. I've always felt that way ever since back in working in Magic Mountain in the '70s. The little girls who had to dress up like the trolls, Magic Mountain trolls. I mean, that was a thankless job, and they got paid minimum.
Yeah.
They got minimum wage, and but they were there because they loved doing it. They loved people, and they loved making that magic.
Yeah, I find it strange that it seems that it was more in Orlando that they did that sort of sketch comedy rather than Hollywood. When you think of the actor background that's in Hollywood compared to Orlando, you'd expect it to be the other way around.
This is true, but there's a couple of things that were different in Hollywood. First of all, the people who were working at Universal Studios in Hollywood were all starving actors,
right?
And they took the job because they couldn't get acting jobs, and they're basically out there promoting themselves. I was rather shocked when I was out there, and you'd ask Charlie Chaplin for his autograph, and the guy would sign his own name as Charlie Chaplin.
Okay.
And they all did that because they're basically promoting themselves.
Yeah, that makes sense.
First of all, and second of all, the way that park evolved through Universal management, which was the reason Walt Disney built Disneyland was because Walt wanted one, and the reason Universal Studios Hollywood built a theme park was because Walt Disney had one, and they wanted one too. They wanted that source of income. And so it was a different philosophy. When Universal opened out here, again, they weren't going to have an entertainment division. So we were pretty much left on our own. We were the little bastard child. And because we were left on our own, we could create things for the sake of creating them and enjoy it. Those first 3 years at Universal Studios, you can ask anybody who worked there then, it was very, very different than when they brought in the Reno guys to run the park. We did that first Halloween Horror Nights it was a very different show because it was completely done in-house, with no consultants, no contract people, and it was very rough and it was very naive, but it was also very heartfelt. And I mean, the people who are doing this now are wonderful stuff, and they really know this stuff much better than we did. But there was something to be said for a bunch of passionate amateurs, which is basically what we were.
Yeah. It makes sense, actually, that, if you've got struggling actors, then, they want to put themselves in the shop window for jobs. So that makes sense, actually.
Yeah.
But I mean, your legacy's still in the park now, Ron. You go there, and like you say, you've got Marilyn Monroe, Lucy's still there, the Blues Brothers are still there. I'm trying to think, would Doc Brown have been there after you then, Ron?
No, we had a Doc Brown. I think he came in. I was no longer directly over the celebrity lookalikes. I was working as a staff writer, but we did get a Doc Brown. We did the opening of the Back to the Future attraction was while I was there and was writing. So I did some writing for that attraction opening. That night, I actually produced that event for the thing, but I wasn't directly over the lookalikes. So we had a guy there who went on to quite a commercial career, and he was our first Doc Brown. But the guy really looked a lot like Jimmy Stewart,
right?
And what I wanted to do for Christmas, I wanted to have him run down Hollywood Boulevard screaming, "Merry Christmas, you old building alone!"
That would be awesome.
He is a wonderful, talented guy that we never got to do that particular gag, but he was our first Doc Brown. He did a terrific job with it.
Yeah, I like to say your legacy still lives on, and it seems to be they are bringing, especially Universal more than Disney, bringing that live element back to the parks more. They seem to be eradicating it from the rides now and sort of bringing it to more like what you were involved in was the streetmosphere, which is good, but I do miss having...
Well, Disney's got this program now that they've had for a long time called the Living Character Initiative. Somebody in the company decided to realize that we can't just have these fiberglass heads walking around. These characters are alive, and we've got to bring them to life. And so now we have the automated character heads that are doing the parade, the stage shows. They've done a wonderful job. They just got a new generation of Mickey, Donald, and Goofy that animated so much better than they were. And I was part of the opening crew on Monsters Incorporated Laugh Floor, which is all part of the Living Character Initiative, creating characters. Now, the difference, the thing that Disney does is they focus on the technology of bringing the characters to life. I think we need to start bringing it down to the live characters, the face characters who are can interact with the guest. I mean, ultimately, I think our goal should be to have an actor in every position in a theme park.
Yeah.
When you've got, I think I've discussed this before, that they used to have a girl dressed as Alice who worked ride dispatch at the Alice in Wonderland ride at Disneyland.
Awesome.
So when you rolled up in your Caterpillar and you were about to go down the rabbit hole, there was a girl that was dressed as Alice.
Brilliant.
And she was the one who hit the button and set you off into Wonderland. That was a marvelous feeling.
Yeah.
That gave you a tremendous send-off. Recently, I went on the Peter Pan's flight at the Magic Kingdom, and the girl who was working at the ride console was the spitting image of Tiger Lily. Now, she wasn't dressed as Tiger Lily, but she had the hair, she had the complexion, she had the face. She was a beautiful, beautiful girl. And I looked at her as I stopped by her waiting to dispatch, and I look at her and I go, "Oh my gosh, I've got Tiger Lily sending me to Neverland." And she busted up and loved it. And it does add something.
Yes.
If you want to see the future of live interaction in theme parks, you go to a Renaissance fair.
Right.
Because there you've got no middle management. You've got nobody riding roughshod over these people. You've got nobody who says, "Well, we can't say this, we can't behave, we can't do this, that, and the other. You've got to be very careful." Well, in Renaissance fairs, they hire the talent, they hire wonderful, passionate people who love what they do, and they turn them loose. And so you have character interactions, and you have atmospheric performers. Some people that aren't even playing to you, they're just living their lives in character. And that creates an atmosphere, that creates a feeling in the guest. Our product is not the attraction. What we're creating here is a feeling inside the guest. The audience is the medium And the name of the show is not Main Street USA. It's your experience of Main Street USA. And the intellectual, spiritual, physical reaction that somebody has to meeting the Dreamfinder, that's what I was about. It wasn't about looking like the Dreamfinder. It was creating within the guest the feeling of meeting the Dreamfinder. Yeah. And this is true for theme parks everywhere.
I mean, you look at that technology and it is unreal. I remember the first time Tracy and I did Turtle Talk with Crush at Epcot.
Yeah.
And I was like, how the hell did they just do that? So we went round and went in it again just because we couldn't really believe what we'd seen. Mm-hmm. And then it was like you could kind of see a repeat of a few animations, but it was still a different show again. And it's just like, how the hell are they doing this?
When they hire the good people, like with Monsters Laugh Floor, this happened with Monsters Laugh Floor. They hired 20 of us to come in and help bring the characters to life. And when management and all the people who trained us went away, and we could seize the reins and make these characters live spontaneously and comedically, that's when the magic really happens.
Yeah, I mean, Universal have done it a little bit with the Donkey and Shrek meet and greet, and then also now with the money exchange in Diagon Alley with the Goblin, but it's not quite on the same level, but potentially it could be. But I suppose you look at the Mystic Fountain in the Lost Continent as well. That's and I love that. Our family could spend hours in front of that Mystic Fountain, and it's like it takes nothing to staff it, really. It's one person, and there's always people surrounding it, and it's a break from trolling around a theme park, and it's just a little interaction. And because you've got the water sprays and stuff, the kids love it, and we could spend hours there. I know the first time, because obviously Tracy and I went with the kids. Without the kids the first time, we knew it was there, so we just had a slow walk past. No, shall we go and have a look over here? And we spent ages there, and it's, I know there's been a lot of speculation that the Lost Continent may not last much longer, and it would be such a shame if we lost that part of it.
Yes, but there's a good chance. I mean, here's the thing. The people that are overseeing Universal Studios, you know where they used to work?
Disney.
They were all Imagineers. All the Imagineers that got tired of working under the constraints of Disney and went over to Universal, where you can do more wild stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think that if Lost Continent does disappear, we're going to get the Forbidden Forest or something equally good. I mean, look what they've done with King Kong and with Harry Potter. So I wouldn't bemoan the loss of anything in the parks right now, because I think that this is a glorious time for the industry and for the art
definitely
of theme, because the people that are running the things now are the people who came up through Imagineering, but are now spreading their wings and doing all sorts of things that we can't possibly imagine.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, Ron, it has been a pleasure to talk to you again for the second time in about 3 days. I really appreciate taking the time after that cock-up that was Monday night.
For me as well, Lee, and I always enjoy it, and anytime you don't want me back, just let me know.
Well, actually, it's funny you mentioned that you wrote the grand opening for the Back to the Future ride.
Yeah.
I think that Darren would not be a very happy person with me if we didn't get you back on at some point to talk about that, because Back to the Future is Darren's favourite attraction.
Okay, well, I just did the event. I didn't have anything to do with the attraction, but I'd be happy to share that story, sure, certainly. Yeah.
So, Ron, plug your book, plug your film.
The book is From Dreamer to Dreamfinder, A Life and Lessons Learned in 40 Years Behind a Name Tag.
And it is that good that Hunter's read it every year since it came out, which I believe is 4 or 5 years at this point. He loves it.
And I'm probably the only person that's read it more often than he has. It tells those stories that we shared here, a lot more about the celebrity lookalikes, and it's all about my 40 years in theme parks. So that's available on Amazon, on BNN and Goodreads. You can go to bambooforestpublishing.com and get an autographed copy sent to you. And there's audiobook and digital and hardcover, softcover. It's all out there.
Who did the audiobook, Ron?
I'm afraid I did. 9 hours of me talking.
No, yes. I think that's perfect, you know. You're a type of person that people could listen to. You know, who better to tell your story than you?
Oh, thank you, sir. And the film that actually, there's two films I have to plug. Dreamfinders. The Dreamfinders is a wonderful documentary created by Anthony Cortese that is going to have its Orlando premiere on the September 3rd and 4th at the Central Florida Film Festival in Ocoee. You can find all the information about that online. Go to the Dreamfinders Facebook page, and we'd love to see people at the premiere. And then also, I just got through, as I said, playing the Frozen Head of Walt Disney and the Further Adventures of Walt's Frozen Head, which will be appearing sometime around the end of the year.
Which looks awesome. Tracy and I watched the trailer for it the other night for the first time, and it looks very interesting.
And that's without the
Yes, I heard a few interviews with yourself on Diz After Dark recently, and the director themselves. So I'm quite interested to watch it. It sounds like one of the better sort of guerrilla filmed films that have been done recently.
Yeah, that's my feeling on it too.
Yes,
what I've seen. Yeah.
Cool. Right. Well, as I said previously, this is not the first time that Ron has been on the show. So if you do want to hear some of his other stuff, you can head back to episode 15. In which he joined us to talk about the very first Halloween Horror Nights, which was very interesting. I think I said this the other night when we recorded, Ron, that it was one of the first interviews with somebody, I'll call you a theme park celebrity, that we'd done, and we were quite nervous, and we'd sort of written all this big introduction, and we kind of went, "Hi Ron, welcome to the show," and then you went off, and an hour later we had this brilliant podcast. Like, oh well, that was easy. And then again, you did come on episode 20 to talk about the first Christmas event at the parks, which was hilarious. But that currently is sat in the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast vault, and I will try and get that out at some point. So, Ron, it has been a pleasure.
My pleasure, Lee. Thanks for
I really appreciate you, especially taking the second time to come and talk to us after the balls up that was Monday. So, for Ron, and the absent Darren, Hunter and Tracy, I've been Lee, and this has been the unofficial Universal Orlando podcast.
That's it for another unofficial Universal Orlando podcast. Make sure you never miss a show by subscribing on iTunes, and while you're there, please leave us a rating and a review. Listen to us on Stitcher, Google Play, and all your podcast apps. Email us with any questions or comments to podcast@uuopodcast.com, or even better, record your message at speakpipe.com/uuopodcast. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Pinterest, keyword UUO Podcast. Check out our blog for even more content at uuopodcast.com. And finally, our sponsors, Fairy Godmother Travel, are here to help with all your Universal vacation needs. So check them out today at fairygodmothertravel.com. Well, that's a wrap. See you next week.